I'm a comedian. I'm a writer, television host. I also host a podcast called Factually, and I'm a general man about the internet, I suppose you might say.
I know you are pretty vocally involved in the Writers Guild of America strike. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us why there's a strike?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, we are, so the Writers Guild of America is a labor union. We represent about 11,000 writers in television and film. We also represent a few other kinds of writers, but we're specifically talking about the television and film writers now. And we have a contract with the companies that produce television and film. They are called the AMPTP, is the sort of consortium of companies we negotiate against. They've spent the last 10 to 15 years figuring out ways to make our work more precarious and pay us less, like basically exploiting contractual loopholes to separate us from a lot of our income and from our work stability. And we are on strike to try to fix that and to put into place in our contract protections that will, codify an industry that, writers will be able to make a sustainable living in. Writer pay has gone down by 23% over the last 10 years, even as show budgets have increased, I believe 50%. Writers are working less weeks. People can't afford to live in Los Angeles, partially because the cost of living here is also rising so quickly. Same problem in New York. And the companies are trying to eliminate the writer's room. They're trying to force screenwriters to do endless drafts for free. They're trying to put comedy variety writers, that means late night and daytime writers, on a day rate where they can hire us and fire us by the day. And we are on strike to change all that.
What's your role been in that process?
I'm a member of the board of the Writers Guild of America West. I'm also on our 2023 negotiating committee. So I'm in the room. Yeah.
Right. One of the topics I've heard come up as one of the key points being discussed in the strike is the use of AI.
Sure.
And I want to ask a bunch about that. First off, AI as a term means a lot of things to different people or doesn't mean anything. What does it mean to you when someone says a script or a poem or whatever was made with AI?
I mean, well, when they're talking specifically about text, they're almost always talking about text generated by large language models, which are, particular form of technology that sucks up every word ever written on the internet and outputs new words, based on a statistical model. It's been described variously as a word calculator that allows you to, you input words one end, you get other words out the other end, right?
Right.
Which is, can be useful in some contexts. It's also been described as a plagiarism machine, which it also is, so I can have it go say, hey, write an episode of Adam Ruins Everything, my old show on True TV. And it can write something that kind of is like an episode of Adam Ruins Everything, although it doesn't contain any jokes and blah, 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 blah. It's only able to do that because it has access to scripts. So the only reason it can do that output is because it was trained on my work. Now, here's the thing. That AI, those large language models cannot actually do the work of a writer because all those language models do is output text. And writing is a lot more than outputting text. Any kind of writing is a lot more than outputting text, but specifically television and film writing is a lot more. Television and film writing entails tasks like taking a phone call from the studio to, adjust the script in the ways that they want. It means meeting with the director to make sure the script fits his vision. It means meeting with the actor to make sure that he likes his portrayal or she doesn't have a problem with the way that, she's portrayed. It means meeting with the line producer to make sure that the script is in budget. Maybe the line producer will say, oh, this is too expensive. You need to economize by combining scenes and et cetera, et cetera. It also means knowing ahead of time, oh shit, if there's too many locations, the line producer is going to yell at me. To make sure she doesn't yell at me, let me combine these scenes, that sort of thing into one location. It means going to set and saying, oh, that line when read that way actually doesn't mean what we thought it meant, and it'll conflict the rest of the script. We need to adjust the line reading slightly. It means going to the edit in post-production and saying, oh, hold on a second, the episode is 5 minutes too long. Which 5 minutes can we cut and still have the episode make sense? These are all tasks that a writer does. And so AI cannot do the work of a writer. Unfortunately, you have to be stupid or completely ignorant about how the business works to think that an algorithm that simply outputs text can do the work of a writer. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that the people who run the companies that we're negotiating against did not even negotiate with us over those proposals when that we made about AI is evidence that they intend to use it that way. And so we have proposals that are designed to make sure that they cannot undermine our working conditions using this large language model software. And they're pretty straightforward proposals that we think they're going to certainly agree to at the end of the strike. I could get into them. They're a little bit technical as regards our contract. It's funny because there's a lot of debate over what the technology can and can't do. I'm actually less interested in what the technology can and can't do. I'm interested in what the CEOs who run the corporations who are constantly trying to erode our wages and working conditions. I'm worried about what they will try to do with the technology, no matter what it is literally capable of. That's the important thing. That we've seen the people who lead not just our companies, but companies around the country use this technology to do shit that it is not capable of doing with disastrous results. And we are not going to let them do that in our neck of the woods.
When you talk about this big list of things that writers do beyond putting words on a page, do you suppose those activities, a lot of those activities you named, those still have to happen? I mean, I have never worked in television or film, but they sound like very clearly things that have to happen, even if the script got spit out by your large language model.
Yeah.
Who does those in this world where we've got, a large language model spitting out a script that somehow is filmable? Who does that work? Is it a writer who's still in the guild, or are we?
Well, the fear is that the companies say, hey, would you take this script that the AI wrote? The AI wrote such a good script. Oh my God, we love the script so much. Would you just punch it up, make sure to add some recent topical references, talk to the director, talk to the actor, go to set, go to post. Oh, but we're not going to pay you as a writer because you didn't write it. The AI wrote it, right? That's the nightmare scenario where we're doing the same work minus the 1% of it that's literally just outputting the words on a page. But we're being paid far less because they've defined only what the large language model does as writing. And that's literally the scenario that we're trying to protect against. So very clever. And guess what? If you can figure out that would work, then I'm pretty sure the CEOs can too. And that's why it's a big deal in our negotiation this year.
And even as regards the act of writing, right? The idea that the algorithm is going to take over this and produce something. Do you think this strike is like setting the stage for the same question in other media, where we're going to see people have the idea that we can have a random number generator produce other things traditionally produced by people and sold off based on, as you said, like a plagiarism for hire?
I mean, we're going to get a little bit to my personal view here. I believe personally that this technology is bad. Like, I think it's useful for a couple of things, but like outputting a string of intelligible text based on every piece of text that you've ever read in a way that is only semi-controllable, right? They have not shown that they can resist prompt engineering. They have not shown that, they can keep, offensive racist things out of it, et cetera, right? I think that has really limited uses. I think it has much more limited uses than people think that it does. A year from now, people are going to be so sick of all AI generated content. It's going to be like looking at Bored Ape NFTs, and it'll go back to the hype wave will end, and it'll go back to being one of many algorithms that people who work in tech can use to do some stuff if they like, right? So a good example of this is like, Photoshop is integrating image generating tools into Photoshop, right? Sure. I think that a tool in Photoshop is a good use for this technology. Of course, they have to make sure it's not like being trained on copyrighted material and stuff like that. But Yeah, I could see myself using that, right? I also think that people will be able to tell the difference, and it'll be a shortcut that some people can take if they want. But guess what? Photoshop's already full of shortcuts. That's what the Band-Aid tool is, the clone
Right.
tool. As far as the Writers Guild, strike being representative of, or being a meaningful fight, I mean, our proposals that we're looking to get are very specific to our contract. They're meant to protect writers from what our specific, people are doing. I think that I think that the larger society is going to reject this being done on a wider scale. And I'm worried about what will happen to writers over the next 5 years. I'm not actually worried about AI writing movies. Like, I don't think
because it's going to make
real.
bad art.
Yeah, it's not going to make art at all. Like,
right.
I'm sorry. People who play with Chat GPT for 5 minutes and say, wow, this is going to write movies are very naive, you're getting rolled. You're getting rolled by a good tech demo. Like, I have friends who have gone to like AI conferences and they see a tech demo and then they come back and they're like, oh my God, guys, this is going to change everything. It's going to take over in 5 years. I'm like, yeah, sounds like you saw a good demo by a marketing guy who was trying to scare you in order to make money for him. You know what I mean? It's like going to see a King Kong movie and being like, wow, that monkey was really big. Where did they get it? It's like, no, it's a fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
And so, like, people need to have a little bit of critical thinking and stop swallowing every line that some tech billionaire is trying to sell you. We need a little bit more skepticism on the internet for our digital citizens, I'd have to say.
I agree. And I think the real danger, just to talk about the AI specifically for another moment, I think the real danger here is the middlemen who are seeing the tech demo and saying, what if we use that in our service area, in our product, right? Not, correct. I bet this is going to be a big success. We see people putting it in physician's assistants and therapy. And it's mind blowing, the idea that people are going to use it for things like that.
The idea that you're going to use a large language model for anything mission critical, for any purpose, right, is a fantasy. The thing that will happen more often, it'll be, a little bit of tech behind the scenes, or more likely half the shit you see being advertised as AI is they're just relabeling something that was previously a normal algorithm. Like, I had a friend go, oh my God, guys, they have AI investment advisors now. It's replacing investment advisors. I'm like, no, that already existed. Wealthfront, Vanguard, Betterment, those are all just algorithmic, like, that's existed for 10 years. They're just calling it AI now because they're trying to pump their stock price because that's the new buzzword and you fell for it. Have a little bit of critical thinking. We just went through crypto 2 years ago. We're all falling for it again. Come on.
It does hurt to remember that.
You got my anger up.
No, I'm controlling my own. I've been through the same tech nonsense, and it blows the mind. Okay, but let's get out of your anger zone. Well, no, I'm sorry, it's not going to help. Let's get out of your AI anger zone. I'll ask you another question about the strike.
Sure.
I know another issue that's been on the docket is streaming residuals, and my understanding is something like, when shows are streamed, the amount of money that writers who worked on the show get is much less than other ways of distribution. Is that, like, why don't you set me straight? Because I'm assuming I'm probably wrong in some way.
Look, it's a little bit of a complicated topic. Yes, the residuals are less than they were in the past. Yes, we are seeking an increase in residuals. There are frankly other issues in our contract that are just as big. Residuals tend to get an outsized amount of media airtime because the public sort of already understands them to a certain extent. And it's like, yes, residuals, those are bad now, right? The more, okay, to finish up with residuals, when the problem is not the technology. The problem is that in the move to the technology, we're having to renegotiate our contract all over again because the old contract only covered linear television and film. And so we're just having to be, over the last 10 years, no, we get this in streaming as well. No, we get this in streaming as well. No, we get this in streaming as well, right? And the counting for streaming works a little bit differently because the residual is based on the thing being on the platform all the time, as opposed to airing once on television, right? Which is a big difference in the structure of the payment. There's also a big problem in foreign residuals where they undercount foreign subscribers quite significantly. We're also seeking a view-based residual where we would get a residual every time a thing is viewed. All that is really important. What is just as important and less covered are things like the fact that the companies are trying to eliminate the writer's room, which would move us from a model where, a writer, first of all, writers spend like a year and a half trying to get their next job generally. But when we get that job, in the past, that job has lasted for like 10 months and it's paid you well enough that, you can survive for another year and a half on that job. Now, though, the companies are trying to eliminate the writer's room and just put us on a freelance model where one person is writing the entire show and can occasionally farm a script out to a freelancer for like $7,500 or something like that. And if we were to allow them to do that, television writing would cease to become a career. It would become like a something that you do in between your shifts at your day job. And that is frankly what it is in many other countries. If you look at countries like, there's a great piece in the LA Times about how much Netflix screws writers in Korea. If you look at them, and their content is very popular around the world, these people are not able to make a living writing for television. They're doing it for fun and because they just love the medium so much, in between their shifts, being an accountant or whatever. And so that is the biggest problem that we're facing. There's also similar problems, like I said, for late night writing, which is the sort of comedy that I do, and for screenwriting, where screenwriters are like forced to do endless drafts for free, and go often years between receiving payments on the work that they're doing.
It seems like a recurring theme that the people who do creative work, there's this idea that they have to do it. They will do it no matter what. And so remuneration is kind of not necessary. We can negotiate all that away.
I mean, that's how most creative fields work. Most of them work on, hey, you love it, right? You just love it. And so you'll do it whether or not we pay you. And they inculcate that desire in people to do it for free. If you look at something like professional wrestling, is just the first one that comes to mind, right? These people kill themselves, right? They die young. They concuss themselves a dozen times a night. And they're all paid terribly. None of them have health insurance. None of them are W-2s. They're all 1099s, Right. They have no union. They have no pension plan. But they just love wrestling, like wrestling is just such a cool thing to do. They just want to do it really badly. And so they put up with it, and it's like incredibly abusive, but that business runs on chewing people's dreams up. There's always another 20-year-old showing up who's just like, yeah, I want to be the next big star. Stand-up comedy honestly works very much the same way. Stand-up comedy pays shit almost to everybody. But oh no, I just love comedy. I just want to be like Dave Chappelle, like that kind of thing. That's a recipe for being exploited. And, the Writers Guild we've had a union for 90 years. And part of the point was to end that and to make sure we were actually paid for the value that we create. And the only reason anybody thinks of television and film writing as being a well-paid industry, occasionally we get, oh, you guys are so rich, why are you on strike? The only reason anyone even thinks of television writing as being a good job is because we've had a union for 90 years. Just like people think of being an auto worker in the 70s as being a good job because of the United Auto Workers, or any other union, or a postal carrier, right? They're like, oh, government job, that you must get paid pretty well. That's because they have a union. And so that we're fighting, we're taking the fight right now that every union needs to take occasionally in order to make, secure a future for its members. Yeah,
I grew up in a steel town, so very much union childhood. Mm-hmm. When those of us who we're not writers, we're not part of the entertainment industry, what can we do to support the Writers Guild to help it reach its goal?
Sure. So there's plenty that you can do. First of all, you can, so the number one rule when you want to support a union is look at what the union asks you to do. Right. So sometimes people are like, should I cancel my Netflix? We're not asking people to cancel their Netflix. And the reason is that boycotts are much weaker than strikes. A strike is the way to really hit them where it hurts. So we're not asking people to cancel anything. What we are asking people to do is, hey, boost us on social media. You know what I mean? Like publicly support us. If you work for one of those companies, like people. I ran into an Apple employee, and she was like, "I don't work for the department that negotiates with you guys, but I support you." And I was like, "Great. Here's an I Stand with the Writers Guild pin, and you can wear that to work, you know?" And she said, "I would love to do that." And that's a great way to support. The other thing you can do is that, you know, we're very cognizant that our strike is affecting other workers who are not in our union, crew members, PAs, actors, etc. There's a group called the Entertainment Community Fund that raises money, or gives grants to folks in the entertainment industry who have fallen on hard times. They've been around for 100 years. They do this every day of the year. But we specifically, the Writers Guild has raised $2 million for that fund to give to folks who are experiencing hardship because of the strike. And you can donate to that fund as well. And they do wonderful work. It's like truly mutual aid. Like they get $1 and they give out $1, right, or they give out 95 cents or whatever, whatever the markup is. So you can go to entertainmentcommunityfund.org and a donation there. You pick film and TV from the drop down menu of where you want the money directed, and it helps.
Great. Okay. Well, we will put some of those links in the show notes. I think I have exhausted all the questions I wanted to ask you. So you might be free of me. Is there anything you wish I had asked you about these topics before I mean,
you didn't ask me why I love Fastmail so much. I was expecting
I don't want to be a shill,
company
but,
shilling. I expected a little bit more.
I am very hesitant to shill, but I do love Fastmail. And if you want to tell us things that make us great, I don't know if we'll air it, but we'll play it in the office and people will high five.
I mean, rock solid, great web interface. I'm really happy you added snooze and undo send. Mm-hmm. Those were really the new features that I wanted. I love that I email the company and I get a reply back really quick. Calendar syncing's really nice. I mean, I hosted at my own domain name. It's like, really great. A couple of years I was like, I'm just going to de-Googleify, got on Fastmail, never looked back. I'll shout out, I use an app called Fastmate, which was made by just some guy on Reddit. And he just updates it once every 6 months on his GitHub repository or whatever. And it's just a little OS X or Mac OS, wrapper for Fastmail that makes it run as a separate app, which I really prefer. I don't like having email in a web browser tab. It's like I'll never find it again when it's in there. So I really do enjoy that. But I love your iOS app as well. The search is really nice. Good product.
I think people sleep on our search. It makes me crazy that Google has how many $1 billion and we beat them at search for email.
I have in this email archive going back to, and by the way, one of the most impressive things was that when I moved from Gmail to Fastmail, the archive, the moving over process was perfect. Like I had Gmail conversations going back to 2005, like literally when Gmail launched. I was an original Gmail user, and all of them are in there perfectly. And I can find the only problem with that is sometimes you search for someone's name and then you're like, oh, what's this email from them? This conversation that we had back in 2005, and you're like, oh my God, what a horrible. Did I really say that? That's awful. I wish I hadn't seen that. You sort of go down a memory hole. You find yourself falling down a time tunnel to your past. That's a little bit uncomfortable. But apart from that, I love everything about Fastmail.